if this property was paying, I got to click off, hold on a sec. Okay, so if this property was paying $200,000 of cash flow on a gross basis, that means before expenses, and the expenses happen to be 35% of the gross, that would leave us with a net income of 65% of $200,000, which is 130 grand. Does everyone see how I got that number? And if you don't, just let me know. Everyone? Okay. So 130,000 is minus the expenses, and then I divide that by by the asking price, which is $1 million, and that gives me a 13% number, and that is known as the cap rate. So your cap rate is always net of your expenses. So if you have a building that's occupied, the cap rate is a very valuable statistic to know about the property, because what that means is that it's fully occupied, and based on closing the deal at that asking price, your cap rate at close is going to be the 13%. Now that doesn't mean there isn't upside potential in the rents, but what that means is just that at its fully occupied condition and status, you're going to, at close, realize a 13% cap rate. Okay, so why would a cap rate not matter? Well, it would not matter in cases where the rental values are so far below market that the property itself is being underutilized. Why might it be underutilized? Does anyone have any ideas why that would be? Just throw out an answer. Any answer will. But just why would a property be underutilized?
Rent control.
Say that again, someone.
Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, I said rent control.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility, right? Rent control controls how much per year can be the rents can be increased, or maybe not even at all. So absolutely rent control. What other factors might a property be underutilized?
I have an underutilized property, and I know it's underutilized because it needs quite a bit of capex to renovate into a new use. And so it's an old farmer's grange hall. It's like a former dance hall. And I've got a few people living in there renting bedrooms that I built, but I really need to turn the whole place into an adult family home and better develop it.
Okay. So there's a really interesting, and absolutely that is so true. When the usage of a property, of a piece of real estate, does not quite fit with what it was intended or what would be best for it, what they call best use or highest and best use, that is a perfect example. The people who are living in there right now, Kevin, I imagine they're probably not paying top of market. Is that correct?
No, far from it.
Nowhere near it. Yeah. If you ever hear of a landlord being tired and ready to go out of real estate, that is another really big reason why a property would be underutilized. They've lost the desire to keep the rents close to market, which means raising rents annually or every other year. They've maybe even lost the desire to max out the investment. They feel that what they've gotten out of that property is everything that they've really wanted to. So they are feeling that at this point, they just don't care. So that's another reason, especially when a tired landlord is getting ready to sell, it's not uncommon to find empty units go unrented, because the way they look at it is the new buyer will come in and they're going to make any changes that they see fit. So why would they want to go spend all the time, energy, and effort showing apartments when they're going to sell the building anyway? That profile that I just described to you of a tired landlord is how my partnership has gone in and bought its last couple deals. They were landlords that they were do not wanters on every level. They did not want to rent any more apartments. They did not want to fix any more toilets. They didn't want to paint anything. They didn't want to hire anybody to do anything other than sell the building. And that's what they did. Okay, perfect. Questions before I move on? Okay.
The 13% cap rate, what are the bands of, like, what's a good number, what's a bad number, what's an okay number, what's a hot number?
Yeah, so Sean, what you're asking is a really good question, and it's going to be relevant to the market itself. The cap rate that LA trades at, which means the cap rate at which you would be buying buildings in, say, LA, Beverly Hills, is going to be a different cap rate than, say, where you might be buying them in Chicago, or you might be buying them in Phoenix or Tucson. So it's going to be market dependent. That's part of the deal. And then the other thing, like I said, is if you have a nearly vacant property where the owner is not bringing in any rents, well, then the cap rate, it's really not significant because they're not utilizing the property the way that the market would benefit them. So in a scenario like this one here, 13% might be a good deal, but I don't know. I would have to actually research Houston to see where Houston trades. My feeling is that, because I made some of these numbers up, my feeling is that Houston actually probably trades around 5 or 6, but I could be wrong. But you would want to learn that as you start finding markets that you want to make an investment in. Is where does this market trade? Is it a 2 cap? Is it a 3 cap? Is it a 6? In Chicago, if we see anything that's 8 or above, we absolutely jump on that opportunity. We immediately start getting in touch with the seller or the brokers who are representing those deals. And if we see a building with almost no cap rate in that same market, we do the same thing because we realize, oh, it's probably a nearly empty building. Maybe they have some violation going on. Right now, we're under contract on a violation building. For that reason, it's under rented because they had issues with black mold, and some tenants reported it to the city building department. So yeah, so it's a great question. The answer is you want to know the cap rate for the market that you're dabbling in.
So like if it was just round numbers, so if the market you're in, Anytown, USA, the standard number is a 10. If you're looking at a 12, that's probably good. If it's at like a 5, double, search deeper. If it's empty, then that it's underutilized, also a jump.
Yeah, because in that case, if it's 5 or less, it usually means that it's half empty, or maybe even like, 3/4 empty. It just kind of depends. By the way, that lead paint violation building I just described that had the mold, we're buying that off of a fix and flipper that ran out of money. So you can't make any assumptions about this business, like who would be selling, you know what I mean? Like you just never know. So staying open-minded and learning your numbers. Like I said, in Chicago, it's 8, but in Phoenix, I might say 6, or even if it says 1.5, because I know at 6 it's probably got a lot of tenants, and at 1 it's probably a nearly empty building that, who knows, maybe they had a violation, or maybe they just had a tired landlord. So you know what I mean? Like, so that's what I look for. I look for those 2 numbers, like what's the high, what's the low. Okay, cool. Thanks for the questions. So moving on, the next thing I'm kind of looking at is, what is the neighbors like? That's really important to me. And the reason why I really want to know about the neighbors, I know this is probably obvious for some people, maybe not for everybody, but I want to know, for example, oh, not the best color, sorry. I want to know, for example, okay, if the building I'm going to buy is right here on whatever road it is, and it looks like it's this road right here, I want to know who the neighbors are. Is it residential? Is it industrial? Is the industrial light industrial? Is it heavy industrial? Who owns the piece of land right next door? Why is it undeveloped? Does it come with, is it one of those deals where it comes with this property? Are there schools? Is there a prison? Is there an airport? Airport especially, by the way, because that's a noise issue for some tenants. Is there a Costco? Is there a Sam's Club? Is there a Walmart? I like to know all those things because what that tells me a little bit is who my neighbors are going to be. It tells me a little bit about where people are going to go shopping. Is transportation a major issue? Is transportation not a major issue? In a place like Houston, subways don't run through the city. So public transpo may not be as important as, say, Chicago, New York, or Boston. So I want to know a lot of these different things because ultimately those factors are going to be weighed in terms of how I value that property. If I'm near a hospital, is it a really busy hospital, or is it just like an urgent care which has a Sizzler right next to it and 10 other stores, right? So I want to know like a lot of these different things. We bought a property one time near an airport, and it was fine, but the noise was from military jets. It wasn't from airplanes. It was like military jets. So when the seller was selling the property, I had to sign an airport addendum that I understood that there was noise from the military base. So, you know what I mean? Like, so you want to factor all that into your valuations, because ultimately someone's going to be using this building, and whoever that is, they have to be able to tolerate whatever is around or near them. And an airport's a big one. Construction can be another one that's an important thing. If there was a big skyrise going on right here, and there's going to be 9 stories, you would want to know that, because for the next year, maybe 2 years, there's going to be nothing but noise for these tenants on this wing, right? So why does that matter to us? Because that's going to be a future property management issue, no matter how we look at it. So just some quick things I want to just kind of throw out there. So I do like to know about the area itself. Anyone else have any questions about that? Or comments? Okay, easy. So, then they did a value add report, and you guys can see here what they had to say about that. What I'm next doing now, though, is I'm really analyzing and looking at what's the condition, what's the quality, how did it look on the outside, how does it look on the inside. And by the way, even after I look at this glossy with all the great photographs, I do like to go on Google Maps and have a look at it from Google Maps just to see what does it look like when the pictures are not touched up. That's super important, because sometimes these touched up photos can make something look, almost like they just painted it yesterday. But then when you go on Google Maps, you realize that, oh, maybe that was a year ago. You know what I mean? So really important. But I like to look at little things like, I want to know what kind of flooring. Is it a luxury flooring? Does the paint look fresh? Does it look new? Is it a relevant color? And when I say relevant, I mean the kind of colors that people are looking for right now. They're still kind of in the light grays or the grays and the whites and what I call the blue family. If I see a lot of cream colors or yellow colors or anything in the family of yellow, immediately I think in the back of my mind, this is an outdated property, or this owner doesn't understand the value of updating the property and trying to get more rent for those upgrades. I like to see white cabinets, gray cabinets, or navy cabinets. I'm even seeing navy bases with white cabinets, and that's okay. I like to see if the appliances are stainless steel, shiny, bling factor and effect, or if they're just trying to do this like matching thing where they're spending way less money. By the way, some of these upgrades that they perform, these value add things that the previous owner may have done, This may be what they call neighborhood appropriate. Neighborhood appropriate meaning that in order to maximize the value of the rents in this particular neighborhood, this may be all you really have to do to get there. So for example, if the market rent is $1,000 a month and the landlord is already getting about $950, well, generally speaking, I'm not going to make any upgrades because to get the extra $50 of rent's not going to be worth it. It's already looking like it's in the kind of condition that it's not only habitable and presentable, but the kind of situation where people would probably want to live here. Because to me, this looks like something that people would want to live in and move in right away. It's not outdated on any level. There's actually some great value here. So initially, looking at the condition just from the pictures, I'm not thinking about remodeling in the back of my mind. Now, on the other hand, if the landlord's collecting $1,000 a month and the market is, after doing my due diligence, I find out is more like, maybe $1,800 a month. Well, I'd like to go get that other $800, and I would like to bring it to a point where I can realize that, because that $800 times 44 units, because again, you're not doing anything once, you're doing it 44 times. That is going to mean an extra $35,000 of rent per month, right? So when you're doing something, you're not doing it once. You're doing it the number of times that you have. And in this case, it's 44 units. Make sense, everybody? It's also down here too. Now, in this case, the seller has a potential rent increase of $100. Well, that $100 needs to translate into something. If you're charging $200 in rent, $100 increase is a 30% increase, right? So that's a giant increase. That's a huge deal. But if you're already charging $1,800 and you can only go get $100 more, that extra 12 grand per month, now you're gonna have to do a break even to figure out, well, do I really want to go get 12 grand when it's going to take me 20 grand to get that extra $100? You see what I'm saying? So this is where you need to start thinking about, okay, what does that potential rent increase really mean? So this is where you need to know, what is the actual rent? And this is where you need to get what? A rent roll. And since you're asking for the rent roll, you're always going to ask for the expenses as well. And you're going to ask for that because you want to understand if these units are separately metered or if the landlord is going to be stuck paying for a lot of the stuff. Does that make sense? Okay. You guys are quiet today. It must have been a hearty lunch. Here's some more upgrades you guys can see. Looks like carpeting. I can't really tell. I think that is. It doesn't look like luxury vinyl to me. If I was going to spend any amount of money based on just the things I'm looking so far, I would be willing to pull up this carpet and put luxury vinyl throughout, just to, if nothing more, go get that extra $100 to $150 of rent every month. The exterior, I don't know what this is. This looks like an office. I'd have to figure a little bit out more about that. I don't like a lot of dead space personally. I would rather see in here either a whole nother rental unit, or I would want to make this some kind of usable thing where I might make that a child's playground, make it like a value add kind of situation. For a 44 unit complex, I don't think it's all that important. And this is just my own personal opinion. I don't think it's all that important that you necessarily have to have a manager's office. I could understand the need definitely for the handyman who maintains this property to need a shed, but I don't think the shed has to be in the middle of the property. So I would want to think about, if I was going to be spending some money on this, I'd probably want to put something in here that might fit for the taste of the tenants that we're serving. So if the tenants, for example, especially if we know they have kids, to me, putting in a playground here would be ideal. Or like I said, the other option is building something out here and actually building some more housing if the city allows it. Okay.
Nice barbecues would work.
Yeah,
Outdoor barbecue.
absolutely.
Everybody
A
has
barbecue area.
everywhere.
Yeah, a barbecue pit where actually, and you know what I've seen before as well. It's a great idea. Where what you do is you take this space here and you put a barbecuer here, barbecuer in this corner here, a third one here, fourth one here. You've got 4 barbecuers, and then maybe you have like, you know, one table here in between the barbecuers, or maybe even a third table, so to speak. So in other words, you have some, it can be utilized so that you're not just using these. So I would agree with that. And in Texas, that makes a lot of sense because they take their barbecue serious, right? Okay, okay. Any questions as I'm kind of going through this? Okay, and then as you see here, the property details, just real quick, the property details are all listed here. The tax ID, why is that important? Because you can see if the seller is current on their taxes and get a feel for, you know, where they are financially. You can start doing searches for liens, such as mechanics liens, mortgage liens, you know, even if it was an IRS lien or something like that. Tax, like I said, check the property tax. There's also a lot of detail about the condition and quality of things like the roof and things like that, the plumbing, the electrical. I like to always ask, when was the roof most recently either repaired or replaced, and is it still under any kind of warranty? I like to ask that also of boilers. Boilers are really common in Chicago, maybe not common here. Hot water heaters, if hot water heaters have been installed, you know, who's servicing the hot water heater or who installed it? Is that under warranty? Is anything under warranty? So I like to know that stuff as well, so we can transfer warranties. This is a community of 44 units. It's probably most likely got some kind of website. So as part of the offer, I'm going to ask for the IP in my offer. So I want all the intellectual property of this property. I want the website. I want the domain to be transferred to me. I want control of that. I want the seller to give me that as part of the purchase. I'd like to be able to have, if they have a payment system that's online, I want to have access to that. Even though I think Zelle is much easier, you know, if they're using apartments.com or something like that to make the payments of rent, I'm gonna ask for that account in the purchase and just have it to be transferred to us. It just depends what they're using. But the IP is really important, because if this is a community that's been around a long time and it's somewhat established, that means tenants have probably been using it in the past to find this location. I want to use the existing marketing. I don't want to go recreate it. I want to buy what they have when I make my offer. And most sellers are happy to give it away, I have found. So, and then there's some more information about the unit mix. That's super important. And why? Because that unit mix, obviously you're going to charge much different rent between a 1-bed, 1-bath and a 2-bed, 1-bath, or a 3-bed, 1-bed, 1-bath. So, you know, they kind of have some different, numbers that they put in here. Me personally, I don't necessarily look to see, okay, what is all my square footage broken down? What I just like to know is if the majority of units or a large number of units are, say, 1-bed, 1-bath, 700 square foot, what I want to know is, okay, in this part of Houston, what are things generally renting for, and are we anywhere near that number? According to the seller, their rent per unit is $875 a month, and their pro forma, which means what they should be getting, is $975. So there's your $100 increase. Remember we were talking earlier that you could increase it by $100. So 975, yeah, 975 is the pro forma. So what is that, 11, 12%? So you're going to realize like 11 or 12% increase in the rents, which, if you think about it, that the way that's supposed to translate is the value of the property would go up by 11 or 12% if your rents are going up 11, 12%. So that's why that's important. Questions about that? And then, there's just some final things in here. When you see laundromat, things like that, you want to know who controls that, whose equipment is that. Is that a company like CSC where, they rent you the equipment and you are paying them rent? Or is it a profit sharing where they agree to all of the maintenance and send a service technician at any time, and in return for that service, they'll cut you a 50-50 deal where you get to keep 50% of proceeds, they get to keep the other 50%. Okay, let me jump into some of your questions because there's some pretty good questions in here. Good idea to ask for a website. Yeah, Dolores, any property, you always want to ask the seller in the seller's disclosures for the ownership or control. That's the way I like to word it. The ownership or control of any marketing, online marketing websites used to market the property for the purposes of leasing to prospective tenants for the subject property. So that's the way I like to word it. Your next, you based off, oh. So no, I don't. The question is, do you buy based off pro forma? The answer is no, because I don't really. Pro forma to me is someone else's opinion of what they feel the market is by maxing out the value of this property. I feel like that's my job to do the due diligence to figure out what the market actually is. And the reason why I want to know that is because it has to do with how I buy property. If I'm buying property using an investor's money, and let's say I'm going to be borrowing it for 1 year, at the end of that 1 year, I got to pay that person back. And the way I have to pay that person back is with a bank loan. Well, everybody knows that when you go to the bank to get a loan, the person who holds the keys to the kingdom is your appraiser. So the appraiser is going to evaluate that building based upon one of several approaches: income approach, cost replacement approach, cap rate. There's some other things. The income approach is how we want them to evaluate this property. Why? Because if we're going to go in and remodel and fix up this property, that means what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the most use out of the property, which means that we're going to try to add value to raise the rents to where we believe the rents are at a fair market value, fair market rate. So I'm not thinking about what the seller's pro forma number is. I'm thinking about what the appraiser, when I go to refinance this property so that I can pay off my investor, I'm thinking about what is the appraiser going to see and look at to determine what that fair market value for rents are times 44. So that's why I'm saying that 975 to me is an arbitrary number, because I have to be able to prove to my my appraiser when we go to get this property, in the refi stage. I have to be able to prove to the appraiser that yes, my numbers are legitimate, that they're justified, and that there's proof that you can get whatever it is, $950 a door, $975, $925. So I think about what my number is, and I work around my number, not someone else's. So that's exactly how I do it. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect.
Question.
Sure.
Is it good to have an appraiser in your pocket? In other words, the fact that you can talk to looking at the property from the beginning to discussing what you will do at the end to get a rough idea?
If you can get an appraiser's attention and you know, if you can get their attention on a deal before you get going, it's ideal. The problem is in certain markets, like in Arizona, the appraisers are so busy, they're not even going to look at the bank's request for an appraisal for 3 weeks. So it just depends what market you're in. But I would absolutely say yes. If you know of it, if you know an appraiser, have a relationship with one, or you can somehow connect with one, and you can get them just to give you a little bit of time of day, then absolutely, that's super critical. An appraiser had a conversation, short conversation with me, was willing to have a short conversation with me on a purchase one time because he had a relationship with the listing agent, and the listing agent said, look, why don't you talk to this guy, you know, before you write the offer, if you feel like you would like to just kind of get a feel for this property, whether it be the rents or whether it be the, you know, the building valuation, whatever. And the appraiser gave me about 5 minutes on the phone and asked, well, you know, one of the very first things he asked is, well, what is the price per unit you're buying at? And I said, and I think it was 100, so I'm just going to throw 100 out. It's $100 a door. And he said, well, that sounds pretty in line. So right away, I had a really good feeling that I was doing the right thing because I needed that appraisal when it came time to refinance the property. So yes, it's always great if you can get an appraiser's opinion. It's just tough to get one in markets where things are really red hot and the appraiser is super busy. So that's why I feel like I've had to learn how to do it on my own and be resourceful, because when you're in a hot market, they may give you the time of day, but they may not have, you know, you may not have all their attention because you're not paying them for it either. So, but I guess on the other hand too, if you're willing to pay for an appraisal and get it done, not contingent to your offer being accepted, then absolutely, then if you can wait for that appraiser to come around, it might take you 2 or 3 weeks to get them to your property to even get an appraisal from them. But if you're paying for it and, you know, the contract's not contingent upon that appraisal, then sure, I don't see why not. It's just that buying buildings right now, it's really tough to buy a building. Competing with so many buyers out there, it's very tough to buy a building and have an appraisal contingency in your deal. It's not that it's impossible. You can do it. It's just that certain deals, if they're priced right, you're going to be competing with 10 people. So the question is do you want to put yourself through that time, energy, and effort when you go to, you know, submit the offer? Like I feel like it's really important to have a competitive offer so that if there are 9 other people behind me, I've got a super competitive offer right in the very first hour that they receive it, and try to get some kind of verbal commitment that that the seller is interested, or if they're not interested, what would it take to get them interested so we can move the property into escrow as quickly as possible? Because it's, you know, everyone talks about how residential is red hot. Well, guess what? So is multifamily apartment building investing. It's very hot. So, any other questions?
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
This thing's been on CoStar for sale for 270 plus days. I wonder why. It's quite a while.
It's a long time, isn't it? Yeah.
And you
could be
said
way
it was a
overpriced. It could be the
13%
location.
cap rate?
Could be the cap rate. It could be It could be the unit mix is not desirable. I found that unit mix is a huge component to investing effectively. And why do I say that is because if you have a community that needs two bath housing, and your building is full of 3-1s and singles, well, you're not really meeting the demands of the community. So unit mix can have a factor. Like, let me go back to the community mix real quick. Where was it? Hold on a sec. No, I think I went too far. Hold on. There it is. 45% of the units are 1 bed, 1 bath. 45. So that right there, that could have something to do with whether this building serves the needs of the community. The next largest is 2 bed, 1 bath. I would think 2 bed, 1 bath would do extremely well because in almost every market I've ever looked at, 2 bed units typically, 2 bed 1 or 2 bed 2 typically are in very high demand. The lowest mix is what they call another 2 bed 2 bath, but it's unit B-U. I don't know what that means. I'd have to learn more. But the next lowest is 3 bed. So this has a very small number. Only 5% of the units, 2 units, are 3 bed 1 bath. So if you have families that are more established, you're typically going to find that they want space, especially like after the lockdowns. Maybe Texas didn't feel it as much as the rest of the country. I don't know for sure because I wasn't in Texas at that time. I was in California, but it could, one of the factors could easily be that the needs of the community are for larger family housing. So if you have 45% 1 bed 1 bath, this building isn't serving the needs of the community on any level. So that could be a reason. The other reason, like you said, had to do with the price, cap rate. That could have something to do with it easily. Could be the location. Is there a super fund site next to it? Which means, what are the super funds? The super funds were those environmentally toxic waste sites that they were declared dangerous by the United States a long time ago. I think it was the mid 80s. So is it near a Superfund site where is there some kind of like lead in the water? Look what happened in Michigan. Residents finding lead in the water. That would cause a massive, massive problem for tenants in that area. So it could be any number of people. I don't know that you can ever find that out, because even with properties that we've made offers on, sometimes I feel like we don't really get the straight answer. If a property is way overpriced and it's been on the market, let's just say for 200 plus days, what I like to know is, well, was this relisted? What is the listing history on this? And if I find out that, oh yeah, it was relisted, it was already on the market for a year before, and now it's been on the market almost another year, that just tells me the seller's not that motivated. Because if you want something sold, you will find a way to sell something. There's a market for everything. There just is, in real estate anyway. And we would want to do some due diligence to figure out, what are we missing here? What are we missing here? What are we missing? There's got to be something we're missing. Like, what are we missing that for 200 plus days, everybody else has already figured out. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a reason. You know, a well-priced asset. I've seen in some cases buildings in Chicago not even go on the market because the minute that the listing agent told some friends who were also realtors or brokers, they already were getting their best buyers looking at that property before it even went onto the market. So by all means, a well-priced asset with reasonable marketing, which means getting eyeballs on that property of people who would typically be buying in that neighborhood. It should absolutely garner offers, if nothing more. If not, get it under contract. So, yep. But no, great questions. Great questions. Sometimes they are on the market forever. Okay, so who's got questions, problems, concerns, challenges? Anyone en route to closing one of their first deals or have any deals in escrow right now they want to talk about, ask a question?
Not multifamily. This is probably more appropriate for your Tuesday call. But
Shoot.
I threw a property up in the chat.
Yeah.
It's can I share screen?
Yes, you want to let Sean share it, and or I can even put it on Zillow if you think that would help.
Sean,
I've got it pulled
try
up.
again. I think you have access now. There you go.
There you go.
So I'm a photographer. You can tell by that.
Beautiful shot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That view will never go away.
I hope it doesn't.
Well, no, if you look, hold on.
Newport Beach?
That's Pacific Beach and Ocean Beach.
Yeah.
And then it's the Channel Islands or the Coronado Islands and then downtown San Diego.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Here, hang on. I'll go a little bit slower. You see my cursor? So this is on the south side of Mount Helix. This is downtown San Diego. That's the Coronado Bridge right there. This is it's San Diego / Point Loma. That's where the indoor sports arena is. This is PB here with the pier right there, and then the islands, and then this is Point Loma right there.
Got it.
Why this view is never going to go anywhere? Give me one sec. Okay, if you can you see the screen now? No.
We just see you.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the property.
Yep.
In between, there's a ravine, for lack of a better term, on the backside of this property.
Okay.
That it's a lower hill here, it's a ravine, and then it's a hill up there.
Okay.
I'm looking at this property. I know they've turned down an offer for 3.7. So 4 is going to take it, or whoever wants to bid higher.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, I'm looking at the property 2 doors down that's currently going for 6.5.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the better view. I'm wondering, could somebody come in there, and I understand it, but a $4 million knockdown, could somebody come in and put in a 500,000 buildup and get that 6.5?
So the way to find out, Sean, and you don't even have to rack your brain over this. This is a no-brainer. All you have to do is, if you feel like that's possible, or you feel like it'd be worth investigating, is just make an offer to option the property at $4 million and go speak to the 3 top, I don't think you need to speak to more than 3, but go speak to the 3 top builders in that area that are already doing mega mansions in that neighborhood or in that kind of neighborhood and ask them if they would be willing to buy it off you for, whatever, 4.2 or 4.1. And if they say yes, you've just made 100 grand or 200 grand. And if not, if they say you're out of your mind, you're going to then ask them, well, why not? I mean, look at the guy next door. He's worth 6 million. And then they're going to explain to you why you can't do it, why they wouldn't even be interested. So
Okay.
This is a common question, and look, and the next door neighbor, honestly, actually, forget the next door neighbor. That property owner, they may or may not accept your option. They may want to put it under contract and not allow you to option it. So one of the things you can do is let them know that, hey, look, you're a photographer, but you're very well connected to 2 or 3 builder types, investor types. The reason why you want to have it under contract is because while they are doing a little bit of their own due diligence, whatever, put it under contract for a month, if nothing more. Like, look, well, let's just do a month. We don't have to do 6 months. Let me put it under contract for a month. If nothing more, I've given you the opportunity to make $4 million for your property. And worst case scenario is my option is just worthless after 30 days. Doesn't tie them up any. And
my background, which, I'm the photographer, but I ran the Home Depot that you could see at the bottom of that hill for 13 years. So I know the builders. Yeah. I could call some people quickly.
Of course you could.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would do if that's where I wanted to put my energy, because I really felt like there was a real great opportunity. That's what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there, just because, like I said, that view, it's never going to go anywhere. Nobody can build. If you look at all the houses behind it, it's funny. It's a domino that somebody builds up, and then the house across the street builds up, and then the house behind them builds up, so that they're all 2 stories in a straight line to re-get their view.
And that's going to be your story to these builders, why it makes so much sense for them to buy it off you for 4.2, for them to go transform and turn it into whatever. And whatever means, whatever their architect tells them, hey, look, this is the highest and best way to design this property.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. It's very speculative, but if you really believe in it, go for it. Why not? You have 0 to lose.
That's pretty much what I figured.
Yeah. You guys, we're coming up on the top of the hour, so I'm sorry that we have to end right now. But before I jump, are there any last questions or comments before I jump?
Are you going to offer on that that Texas property? Is that something you're going to go for?
What did we do? Yeah, we made an offer. We never heard back from the wholesaler. Yeah, we made an offer, and the wholesaler did not respond affirmatively or negatively. They just kind of disappeared. So I don't know if it's because their contract expired with the seller, but I was waiting to see what the wholesaler had to say. And I think what we're going to do now is we're just going to go back to the seller's listing agent and just find out, hey, do you still have this property under contract? Because if you do, we would like to submit an offer. It's just that we didn't want to bypass the wholesaler. We wanted to give them a shot, but they went quiet. So we never closed on. Never did anything with it.
Oh, I didn't ever see a list price in the memorandum.
There may not have been. Yeah, there may. But what we did is we made an offer. Yeah. We just wrote up an offer and I think I did it per unit. And I just said, well, let's just see if they take this. Yeah. But let me get back to you, because I don't even remember. I don't even remember what we offered. I do remember, though, that the colors of this property are nowhere near as brilliant as what you see here. When you look at Google Maps, So just
Did you
FYI.
Photoshop the thing? Because the photos look dynamite. I mean, the turquoise and the gold and the white trim. I mean, obviously somebody had a good eye.
They did. All right, you guys. I'm sorry, but I got to go. It's 3:00. I have a 3:00 right now. Thank you so much for everyone being on. Join me every Tuesday at noon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you guys want to receive an invitation, just put your contact info. Jess will collect the info from the chat, and I'll send you an invitation next week. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.